This video is sponsored by Squarespace, the fastest and easiest place to build your photography website. I used to work at Nopac Steakhouse, but now I'm a photographer. When I look back on my career, I want to remember how shallow my depth of field was. So shallow.
I'm blessed with a dream. That's all I got, that's all I need. I'm gonna be wherever I wanna be.
Yeah, I want to be the Boca champion. Boca, 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 Boca champion. Fast glass is the only thing I'm carrying. Won't ever stop it down. No, you can't be the Boca champion. There can only be one champion, and I'm the Boca champion. Check out my depth of field. Oh, it's pronounced Bokai? Alright. First, I want to say thank you so much for coming down here today, and let's get right to it. Why do you want this job?
Well, I think I'd be a great main lens for portraits and people. I'm pretty lightweight and small, and people don't seem to get too nervous when you point me in their direction.
What are your weaknesses?
Well, I don't zoom, and I'm kind of expensive, but I promise you that the image quality really is worth it.
Where would you like to be in your career 5 years from now?
Well, I'm personally made for digital SLR, so I guess mirrorless. I'll probably end up going mirrorless. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your time, and we'll get back to you.
Hey, honey, I got the job.
That's great, sweetie. You should tell your son.
Hey, Trey, I got a new job.
That's cool, Dad. Maybe someday you'll be a market leader again.
All right, getting to the shoot. The reasons, I guess I have 3 or 4 reasons why I really enjoy the 85mm lens. And the first one is that for myself, I'm a very introverted individual. And I have found that for the most part, couples and clients that are attracted to my style of work and myself as a photographer tend to also be on the introverted side. They're never people that are super comfortable in front of the camera. So if I can add a little bit of space, I feel like it's the right distance for both of us. If I was on a 35, I might be a little bit too close. I wouldn't feel super comfortable. They might not feel super comfortable. At 85, it's a much easier way, especially at the very beginning of the shoot. It also doesn't look too intimidating. That if I was to arrive with something like a 7200, that immediately kind of puts a barrier of gear in front of us just by the physical size of things. So I like to keep it as minimal as possible. To add even more to that, and the minimal nature of how I do this style of shoot is that I will only arrive with an 85mm lens. Sometimes I'll have it's almost a pancake size. It's a 28mm 2.8D for Nikon, and it's kind of that pancake style lens. It can actually fit into my back pocket if I want. But I can count on one hand the number of times I actually had to use that second lens on a shoot day to get a wide angle shot that I couldn't do with an 85. You can get the shots that look wide, like this one, for instance, that looks like a wider frame, but when you shoot it with an 85, it gives the image, I would almost say, like a more painterly feel overall. I don't know if that's a descriptive term of what this feeling is, but that's kind of the look and feel that I get from these images, and it's one of the reasons that I like the 85. And now, off to Miami with the Nikon 85mm for the Z series. Today we're going for a walk around with the 85mm lens for the Z series, and I'm going to be shooting everything at 1.8 wide open. One of the main benefits of any of these Z series lenses is that you can shoot them wide open and they're perfectly sharp edge to edge. And we're going to go for a little walk around, and it's just kind of a lens test, and let's go. Look, our first photograph. The one thing I love about Miami, and specifically this area of Miami, is just that every single building has something interesting going on with it. Everything is unique and really one of a kind here. And we're getting some nice natural contrast from the clouds behind. Might be rain clouds, but photographically, they're working really well because you can get that nice contrast this way and you get that nice blue sky over here. I would say the 85 is, if the 35 is my favorite lens for filmmaking, for travel photography, I would say the 85 is my favorite lens for anything portrait or wedding related. I'm very comfortable with this focal range. And it's kind of a lens for introvert, for quiet individuals that are a little bit more shy. That a 50 is, I would say, maybe a more traditional portrait style lens for kind of the coverage that you see often today. But I find myself just a little bit uncomfortable if I have to get that close. So 85 is kind of my comfort zone. It's the space that I've lived in for a little while now, and it's when I know exactly what that 85 frame is going to be before I even pull it up. So it's just kind of second nature to me. I love the depth of field and the way that you can isolate your subject, and specifically on a wedding day or in a portrait scenario where you don't have control over everything, that you can walk in and anything that you don't really want in the frame, you can kind of reduce to a nice soft blur. And using it for street photography, one, if you're photographing people, it's very useful because you can get a little bit closer. You don't have to really be right up in people's faces. But I personally like it just because it's something new. That usually when I come out here, I'm on a 24 or 35, and to be on something completely different than that forces me out of that comfort zone in street photography and forces me to create something different than I usually would.
And to add to that, shooting at 1.4, I know it was a joke in the beginning, but I find it really beneficial on wedding days. One, that you can kind of instantly make an image that feels a lot better overall, really kind of in any environment, that if you have that ability to go down to 1.4 or 1.8 at 85, that creates a great look. If you find any good light anywhere, you can kind of make any background disappear into a nice kind of soft creamy blur. And whether that means that you're in a parking lot and there's a couple of trees and maybe some cars off in the distance, it creates something that's aesthetically pleasing. And if I was to shoot that at something like at 24 f4, it would be, everything would be in focus and there would be way too many distracting elements in the background. And wedding days, couple shoots like this, the couple is the center focus. So I really do think that by shooting with such a small depth of field, you really do create better work overall. And maybe even to pair with that, the efficiency that comes along with shooting one lens, I feel like also really kind of steps up the client experience, and two, your creative abilities, that when you're limited in some way, kind of you put yourself into that 85 box, you figure out how to do all this stuff rather than sitting there and changing lenses to think about what you're going to do next, that you don't have that downtime, that you got to have something else like ready to go. And that might sound stressful, but I found that when I get into that situation and I kind of have those half-baked ideas that I'm like, yeah, like this is good, let's do this, something ends up working, and it works in a different way than I would usually have done it had I had access to all of my gear. Obviously also walking around with an 85, it's great because you don't have a bag, you don't have a rolly case, you just go and you just are more in the moment overall, which I really, really like. And now to Mexico.
Tim, I only brought an 85mm lens. Tim, I didn't bring a battery charger.
This week on Survivor Island of Photographers, 3 photographers photograph a 30-guest wedding. Who will be voted off the island? Will it be Marshall, who wears a shirt in the swimming pool? Tim, who seduces a young mariachi named Andreas? Or Taylor, who just won't stop photographing clouds? Then, 10 minutes before the ceremony, rain. Find out how it ends on this week's episode of Survivor Island of Photographers. To add to the shooting at 1.4 in wedding days, so I kind of gave the example of if you're in a parking lot, you want those cars to disappear, but really at any other point in the day, that if you walk into the getting ready area, or in the instance of a commercial shoot, say you're doing environmental headshots, that you don't have to go in, you don't have to clean up the room. On a wedding day, it's a little bit more difficult to do that. If you're doing a commercial shoot, maybe it makes sense to clean up all the space if you're going to be shooting in just a few locations. But on a wedding day, I have to arrive. I don't know what I'm arriving into, and I have to do the absolute best that I possibly can. I find with an 85, one, it keeps a little bit of the ground out of it, because I feel like there's always bags and everything kind of all over the ground in those getting ready circumstances. But then also it creates that really nice soft depth of field that really just kind of makes everything that's in the background, whether it's kind of half consumed glasses of champagne or whatever it might be, it makes it all look and feel really, really nice together. So overall, the 85mm lens is my first choice always. If I am going to, say, a destination wedding in Mexico, and I'm not the lead shooter, obviously if I'm the lead, I'm going to bring some other gear. But today I only brought the 85mm lens with me, and I was very, very happy with that choice.
Maybe one more tip would be to make sure that you have a lot of time with that lens before you find yourself in very contrast-rich environments. That with at least the digital SLR versions of these lenses, newer versions of the lenses won't have these problems, but you will see some chroma and some purple fringing and red fringing if you're trying to shoot wide open with the older lenses. That said, you kind of learn those within the first 1 or 2 fails, and even if you fail, you're not going to, the entire shoot's not gone. That's maybe 1 or 2 images within that, and you know when it's time to stop down to f2 if you're dealing with a similar situation in the future. So the 85mm lens is my favorite lens. Get one. Get the 1.8 version if you're not sold on the 1.4. Save a little bit of money right now. But I guarantee that in terms of at least portraiture and photographing weddings, it is going to help you a lot. And it's really going to, I know we're not supposed to use gear as a way to increase our skill, but those first few shots with that 85 at 1.4, when everything's all lit nice and those images come together, it really does give you a huge boost of confidence and just being able to create amazing images. So if you're on the fence, get an 85. Rent one if you don't want to buy one, borrow one from a friend, or make your own if you have. Probably don't do that. Probably just buy one. Today's video is sponsored by Squarespace. Squarespace really is the fastest and easiest place for any photographer to make their website. The things that I love the most, one, how easy it is to set up, that and also whenever you do set up your website, that it just works across all different styles of devices. So from computer to phone to tablet to whatever might exist in the future. I like knowing that I don't have to do any hard-coded updates in order to make that work, that it all just happens. And also that my website is just online all the time. I've definitely had some issues with this in the past with other web hosts. So if you're interested, head over to squarespace.com/Taylor Jackson and sign up for your trial, build it out. And if you love it, which I'm pretty certain that you're going to, go live with it and turn it into your website for your photography business. All of my websites currently run on Squarespace and I am very happy with them overall. So thanks very much to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. I'll see you again another time. Until then, please enjoy this song. I'm the Boca champion. Boca, boca, boca.